Hello YouTube, Tim here. This is the now shaped bow of Bravery. I cut the ends down so they're now much more gracile, very elegant I think. Sanded the edges, or rather I filed the edges down, and I cut rough nocks. Now I wanted to show you a little bit more about how I finish the bow, get it ready for actual decoration. At this stage it's not done, it's not even close to ready. The first thing you can do is, over the areas that you've filed, I'll go over it with some sandpaper. This is some pretty coarse 80 grit sandpaper. So you can just go over all the edges until it's all nice and smooth. Depending on how you're finishing it, you may or may not need to do that. If you're covering it with leather, I wouldn't waste the time so much. I would just spend some more time going and if you were just going to cover it with leather, I would rough it up enough to help the fluid here, but I wouldn't worry too much beyond that. So all I do is I go in and I sand all the rough edges down, try and get all the sharp corners off, and stuff like that. Since this one is going to be sanded, I'm not trying to worry too much right here. I'm going to get some nice fresh sandpaper and coarsely do the whole thing all together. But while I have it, I wanted to show you another way. I think this is what Nick was describing when he was talking about scraping. I didn't watch that video of his, probably should have, but I've taken the back of some either fairly dull scissors or the back of a thin, cheap knife, and the lettering just comes right off. Like so. You get little filings of PVC, but it's not nearly as bad as the dust, and you can very nicely control it so that you only get what you want and you don't remove too much material. I actually think this would be a kind of a neat way to remove material near junctions. I just have this idea that down the road I'd like to make a bow transitioning from 3/4 inch to 1/2 inch pipe, but I want to glue it together very well and then make the transition as smooth as possible. If I'm going to do that, this seems so much more delicate, or at least a way to finish. Maybe you could start with a file, then with sandpaper, and then just scrape it down like this to make a nice smooth junction. That would be ideal. It would be really cool if it worked out like that. But I've yet to do that. Again, my obsession, the idea behind all of that would be reducing limb mass, outer limb mass, as much as possible. I'm working on a little book talking about exactly those sorts of things, the factors that are important to bow performance, ways you can improve bow performance, with a few ideas for just basic bow patterns and bow designs that are going to be very high performance relative to your basic off the, your first run at making a wood bow. So I'll let you know more about that as I finish that up and get working on it. One other side project that I'm doing is a book on depictions of archery, specifically Asian archery, in artwork. I'm collecting a huge amount of public domain artwork, and then I'm annotating it, trying to find out where it came from, the sources, and mostly just putting it in one place so that it can be analyzed and looked at. A lot of the artists aren't going to know very much about archery. Some of them might. A lot of points, especially if they hold over different cultures and times, you may find that they're more accurate than just simple randomness or the bias of the artist. I'd like to find out if we can learn anything from these, but the first step in that is gathering the art, of course. So that's what I'm working on. That's one of my other side projects. Expect to hear more about both of those in the future. Okay, that's great. So we just took off all of the little markings along the side. This one I had used, I think, a 10-inch pot to bend it around instead of a 8-inch pot, or doing it by hand, or doing it over another pipe. And so I used a slightly different technique, one that I'm sure you could figure out. It's nothing special, it's just using a larger pot. So I won't insult your creativity and intelligence by just demonstrating something that simple. So look at that. Great. I'm pretty sure that's what Nick was talking about, because it really does work well. This whole middle section I'm not worried about, and it allows me to index, find where the middle is, because I'm going to wrap that in probably jute or linen, some sort of flax fiber, something like that. Anyway, we've got the basic thing all finished out now. Another way to get some of the lettering off that I've used in the past has been steel wool. That works really well. It produces a little bit more dust and it's a little bit more work, but it also works really well. I do like using the steel wool to clean up the knocks though. You can get a lot of the little bumps out, make it a little smoother without taking off a lot of material. So there you go. That's the basic process. That's what I'm on about, and that's what I'm thinking of doing in the future. So keep up with us, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks for watching.